What's up guys, it's CG. So this is going to be a thorough review of 40 Knots by the House of Xerjoff. First I'm going to give you guys a rundown so you have a general idea what the fragrance is about. Then I'm going to share with you how users rated the scent profile and the performance. My wife and I are going to share our impressions of it. And finally I'm going to share my overall opinion after wearing it. Without further ado, let's get this started. So the scent type of Xerjoff's 40 Knots is a powdery woody amber. The powder is very front and center on this one, and then it's kind of supported with a Coca-Cola amber and a cedar wood. It's very classy, fresh, and comforting, and it's also a fragrance that transitions and changes a ton through its lifespan, more than anything else I've ever tried. The notes are a bit deceiving because it's not an aquatic. Even the branding, the join the club branding, this is supposed to emulate being on a yacht club in an exclusive environment. It's not that at all. I mean, in the top you have salt, green notes. In the heart you have seawater, cedar, and in the base you have white musk, coffee, clove, and amber. And again, like, I'm not picking up these notes in the composition at all. An interesting fact is that the bottle itself, first, the glass is thicker than a Snicker, and also it's actually authentic blue glass. It's not tinted, and this thing just feels absolutely solid with a metal cap, thick blue glass. For the scent rating, I got a high score of an 8.5 out of 10. 80% of users would give it an 8 or above, and only 7% of people would give it a 6 or lower. So it's extremely likely that you're gonna like this fragrance if you try it out. I would give the scent profile a 10 personally, and I think it really captures a true niche experience. It's something extremely unique, but also extremely crowd pleasing in my opinion. This is one of my favorite fragrances of all time, and it's in my top 3 from Xerjoff alongside Tony Iommi and Naxos. For longevity, it got a rating of an 8.3, which is a good score. 88% of users gave it an 8 or above, so not too many bad ratings on this one. I would say I would give it a 9 or a 10. I mean, it lasts the full workday, and there's not much more I can ask from a fragrance than that. For projection, it received an average score of an 8, which is decent, and if you look at the rating distribution, a lot of voters gave it an 8. That seems to be the most common response. I'm the type that's not really looking to project extremely loud, and this is one of my more complimented fragrances, so I know people definitely pick up on it in my vicinity. So I would give it a 10, honestly. And there's been times where my wife has worn it and I've been like, dang, like, this stuff is very strong. You almost can get slapped in the face with it, even hours after application. But at the same time, it's not so nuclear that one spritz is gonna explode a room. So with 40 Knots, you are getting a powdery fragrance. That's first and foremost. I mean, that's the type of freshness it is. It's very unisex that way. It's very powdery. And if you really are opposed to powdery fragrances, I just don't see you enjoying this one at all. But if you even are okay with powdery fragrances, this is powder done to perfection. I'm not a big fan of powder, but I love this fragrance. I absolutely love it. But powder is front and center. And on the opening, this is how it changes for me at least. You're hit with almost the powder coming together and forming almost a salty air. Like, to some extent, a marine likeness to the quality of it. And you immediately get hit with the amber. And the amber is a Coca-Cola flavored amber. Like, that's the best way to describe it. Kind of like just that Coca-Cola with that powder. And the woods are more in the background, but you still detect them. At least for me, I detect like a cedar wood. So cedar wood, Coca-Cola amber, and powder. And just on the opening, it's very kind of light and airy and refreshing. I always smile anytime I spray 40 Knots. As it dries down, it becomes much more of a amber, powdery fragrance with the woods, and everything just kind of fluctuates. Sometimes you get more amber, sometimes you get more powder, sometimes you get more woods. And it's really crazy how just the quality of this juice and how it does that. Like, I feel like that's a true niche experience when you find something evolving, but it's rare for something to evolve so much that you almost get something different every time you smell it. Sometimes I'll smell it and think, man, this smells like pure baby wipes. And sometimes I'll smell it and think, man, this smells like Coca-Cola. And sometimes I'll smell it and think, This smells like Creed Royal Oud. Like, this smells like a fresh cedar. That's the life of it, and what it creates in the air from my wife wearing it is just the most interesting amber fragrance ever. Like, the way it infuses with the air, it's crazy. Just the amber and the vibe that it creates is absolutely beautiful and so unique, like incredibly unique. I've never smelled anything like this on a human being. And if I were walking by and caught a whiff of this off somebody, I'd be like, what the heck is that? Now, the powder in here, and it doesn't smell like this fragrance at all, but just the way the powder is done reminds me of Obsession for Men. Like, that type of classy fougere powder. Like, this feels like a bit more of a mature fragrance for that reason. And it doesn't smell like Obsession for Men. I don't like drawing comparisons, but if you smell this and think of Obsession for Men, you will come back to this channel and subscribe to it, because I think you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. That Obsession DNA somewhat is in this. It's just, instead of it being surrounded with spices and like Christmassy vibes, it's surrounded with amber and cedar wood and like almost a deep royal blue vibe. Really far into the dry down of this, like towards the end of it, you get a Creed Royal Oud smell. There's a certain thing to the Creed Royal Oud dry down, like a addictive woodiness that you get with this. And if you haven't smelled Creed Royal Oud, what I'm saying is you're left with like a nice fresh cedar wood, and it's like the amber and the powderiness of this just dies off at like around hour 6, and the far dry down is just this nice classy woody smell. The vibe I get from this is almost like it's unisex, but at the same time I get a barbershop vibe, almost like a clean powdery vibe, like powdery freshness and just feeling clean cut and put together. And it does kind of give me like a similar vibe to other barbershop fragrances without being a barbershop fragrance. It really just feels like a clean haircut, nicely dressed, put together, mature person. I do get a lot of compliments with this one. It's one of my more complimented fragrances. When people give me compliments, they seem genuinely interested in what it is. They try to describe the smell themselves, because this comes across as a very interesting fragrance in the air. I wouldn't wear this in high heat, like I'm talking 100 degrees, but every other time, I personally think it's great. Even in 80, 90 degree weather, or even on the coldest of winter nights, this has a soothing component because of that Obsession-like powder that makes it comforting as much as it is refreshing.
Okay, so this is
40 knots.
40 knots. I know 40 knots. Girl. Wow. So my first blast of scent is very wood, like a very intense wood. But you know, I have 40 knots and I wear it myself, and I know how it changes. It really does. It really transforms. Like every hour you feel like you're wearing something different from wearing 40 knots. So to me, it goes from being super woody to almost being in that same ballpark with Angel's Share and that type of fragrance. I don't think it's feminine. Like, I have it, but I don't think it's feminine. I do see like men wearing it, and it's really weird because I feel like only certain types of people can pull it off. Actually, this is not for everybody, in my opinion. Like, in men, I would say my image of who wears this is somebody like with a beard and maybe a tattoo or two, and that type of guy, like a more rugged look, you know. This is a 9.5. Very good. My
overall opinion of 40 knots is I absolutely love it, obviously. I think it's one of the greatest value fragrances on the market. I think the performance is solid. I think it's a true niche experience. I think it's classy and fresh. It's just, honestly, it's one of the best things I feel was ever created in the niche perfume industry. It's way up there. And the value that you get, like considering you can get a bottle like this for like $170, $180, it's hard for anything to compete with this. It's a fragrance that I will always have, and it's probably the most used fragrance in my house because both me and my wife wear it and we both love it. So feel free to comment with y'all's opinions and subscribe for future content.